You're listening to Headvoice, bringing you inside the minds of the best in contemporary a cappella. I'm Evan.
And I'm Kayla. And this week we have Ian and Lizzie on, who are the co-founders of Gestalt A Cappella at the University of Florida. During this episode, we talked about Gestalt's origin story and how they cultivated their own unique brand and sound.
The group just released their very first studio album called Beyond the Archetype, which is available now on all the things. The links to that will be in the show notes. Ian and Lizzie have a very fresh take on how to build and maintain an a cappella group, so I think you'll really enjoy this week's episode of Headvoice.
They're so in sync. Hi guys. We're super excited to have you both on the show. We have Lizzie and Ian from Gestalt. Hi, welcome to Headvoice.
Hi, thank you for having us.
Of course. So we were actually at SoJam this past weekend and we got to see you guys live, so that was really awesome to see you in person. But we're just going to start it off and ask if you could just give us kind of an introduction to who you guys are and where you're from and how you started in music in general.
Okay, well, I'm Lizzie. I'm from Miami, Florida, and Ian, I've been singing, since middle school, private training and just chorus. When I got to college, I still wanted to continue singing, so I joined a cappella, and that is where I met Ian.
Mm-hmm. I pretty much had the same background, like doing theater in high school, chorus in high school, and then when I came to college, only knew of like pentatonics in terms of a cappella, and then I saw auditions for one of the groups on campus, and that's where I met Lizzie. We were in the same group for 2 years before we decided to found Gestalt, and so now here we are in year 2 of Gestalt together.
So speaking of that, why? Where did the idea come from?
A lot of turmoil. I think what happens when you have a really big group that's been around for a while is you start to see half of the group want one thing and half want the other, and trying to find compromise, meeting in the middle, nobody's happy. And so we were in that group for 2 years, and for the whole second year, we just were getting nothing out of it that we had wanted, feeling stifled artistically and then emotionally, and not singing the music we wanted to sing, being way too invested in public school, like spirit, tailgating, football. It just wasn't what we wanted out of a cappella.
Right.
And trying to meet in the middle was just unfair to everyone. Yeah. So we decided to just step out and create that for ourselves.
Mm-hmm. And definitely the catalyst for, that realization when, Lizzie and I decided between ourselves that we would, drop our old group and start a new one, was going to Boss 2016. We were sitting front row in the Somerville Theater. We saw the Vassar Devils.
We were sitting like 6th row back on the left, so we were there. Probably very close to you guys.
Yeah, but we saw the Vassar Devils do everything that they did that evening, which was incredible. And like we got back to Florida, that next week, and we met outside the library, and we acknowledged that we just needed to make a new group, and
we could not come home from that and not strive for it. And so I remember not sleeping because we were both running, like in elections, running for positions in our other group, and just tossing and turning, being like, I can't see that happening and not be a part of that. And I was like, at 4 a.m., Ian, meet me in the morning. And we met, and I said, urgent. I love you, and I know that this affects you, because obviously if I left, he wasn't going to stay by himself. Yeah. And so I was kind of killing his dreams of a cappella. But I was like, I'm not doing it. And he just said, fine, what are we calling it?
Referring to the new group that was just like so obviously going to be what we worked on next.
Yeah.
And
y'all seem to be on the same page. So you kind of just said it, what are we calling it? So why Gestalt, and where did like that sort of component come in? Where did your whole like ideology originate from?
So when we were at that table outside the library, I think that's when I first uttered the name Gestalt. I remembered it from an AP psychology class my sophomore year of high school.
Hey.
And we had been talking about like musically what we wanted to do differently with this potential new group in comparison to the group we were currently in. And we talked about like every part being important, yet there's still being this like group identity beyond that.
Right.
And I remember thinking, okay, that's literally Gestalt theory. And I thought Gestalt sounded appropriately pretentious. and would just set us on the right track to be artistic and everything.
Again, and just coming from a place of, being a soprano with 3 other sopranos singing the exact same part and just feeling like, I could not be here and it just wouldn't make a difference. And people, because of that, not putting as much effort forward and other people picking up that slack for them, because someone's going to learn it and then you're just going to pick it up, because obviously we all have good ears, like, you know what I mean? So in Gestalt, having everyone just responsible for their own part makes everyone accountable on such a different and elevated level that everyone is serving what they need to serve and beyond.
Right.
Yeah, social loafing is impossible in Gestalt, just like by construction.
So I don't know, I'm sure it happens everywhere in the country, but to me in Florida, it really seems like there's something in the water there that is like breeding these new groups and stuff. Like, we talked to Harrison and that was kind of a similar process that he went through for VoiceBox. So like, what is the first step that you guys take when you're like, well, this is actually a thing that we're going to do? Who do we need to talk to? What do we have to do to get things going?
The very first step for us was...
Oh, Matt, who were you going to say?
Oh, I was going to say asking questions, questioning everything, because that was kind of what led us. So the first step to me isn't actually asking outsiders, but saying, why don't we like this? Let's just do it differently. And being completely fearless, because there was a time, we were creating this group in the summer, which is the worst time for collegiate a cappella, because everyone's all over the place, and it kind of feels like the group is falling apart, even when you have a founded group. And getting back is always a weird thing, and we were creating a group in that worst time. And I remember Ian being like, I don't know if I can do this. And I was just like, nope, we're doing it. So let's just forge forward. I think just doing it is what you have to do.
Lizzie and I were 9 time zones apart. She was in London. I was in Seattle.
Oh my gosh.
Somebody check those times out. I don't know.
We were like, let's just make a Facebook page.
It was really hard to communicate like that entire summer, but like we had no other choice.
Yeah.
We had everything but music, and we somehow ended up in the running for Sing It On season 3.
Yeah. So. Well, with respect to music, one of the first things that I did is I sent this cold email to Matt Goldstein from the Vassar Devils. I didn't meet him at Boss, but obviously I saw him, being a celebrity, for that weekend. Yeah. So I sent him this email, like, I don't know, June, July maybe, and was like, hey, I saw your group at Boss. You guys were really incredible and really moving. I'm trying to start a new group. We need repertoire that isn't bad. In fact, hopefully would be quite good. Can you sell me some of your arrangements, like, for not a lot of money? And he eventually got back to me and was like so down for it, was super helpful, like gave me like a bundle deal on like the Time Machine and Alive arrangements. And then once I had the vocal information for the current parts of Gestalt that we had had at the time, which was 5, I think. I had like all the ranges and stuff, and I had like projected ranges of like new members we were going to take in the fall. And Matt revoiced all of the Devil's arrangements for our voices for free, which was totally unexpected and like literally the nicest thing I think anyone has like ever done for Gestalt, honestly.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that just like set us off to a really great start. We had incredible repertoire day one.
To like learn how to learn music together.
Yeah.
And then I forget how Sing It On even started.
Oh, I saw this Facebook post that they were like, if you think your group deserves to be on Sing It On, email us. And so I did. I ended up on the phone with Isaac from the Nor'easters, and he was like, we think you guys are great. Can you just send us some music so we can confirm, that you're an a cappella group and you sing?
This is still during the summer. We literally had not had a rehearsal yet.
We had no rehearsal, but we did like 6 hours of one-on-one interviews with the casting director. Mm-hmm. We got together in a rehearsal room with my friend Az. He's a videographer, and we were just like, make this look like a reality TV show. Ian did an organic arrangement of We Don't Talk Anymore. We learned it in the studio and performed it at the end of that rehearsal. And it is on our Instagram today. It's our first post. It's really not great.
It looks great. Doesn't sound great, but
looks incredible.
Yeah.
That's so funny. In doing this show, I think we're slowly piecing together who season 3 of Sing It On would have been, maybe. Like, we talked to, like, Harrison, I think he was going to be on it, too.
Yeah.
and I don't know, whatever. And like Trebs were maybe gonna be on it when like after we were in the group. That would have been a fun season.
It would have been.
It would have been the best season
all the
ever.
pieces
Honestly,
together.
like,
Yeah.
it's a shame it didn't get picked up.
It is a
It
shame.
really would have been great, but
That's what happened. And then just going back to the original question of like getting it started, Ian brought up a good point, and that's having really great people around you like Matt Goldstein. So creating those relationships and having people want to help you has helped us tremendously. We don't have too much pride to know what we're not good at and to ask for that help. And we do ask for it from, I would say, some of the best people in this business.
yeah.
And they're there for us.
That's especially something with arranging. Like other than that, we don't talk anymore. Arrangement that we don't talk about anymore. I think I've literally arranged only one song for Gestalt. Is Lion Prelude the only one? Yeah. So everything else is professional. And on UF campus and everything that I've heard from other people, it's a similar atmosphere on most other campuses that like music directors just like do the arranging for the group, and it's you know, taboo to pay someone else to do it. Everyone just feels weird about doing it.
Right.
And, you know, I sat myself down and I was like, okay, I can churn out an arrangement. It's going to be like decent plus. Or I could, you know, drop a few dollars and have someone incredible do it and like convey all these musical ideas that I have, which I do see as being good. I just don't know how to put them together in an arrangement in the best way. And I think it's important as a music director to like be able to acknowledge like where my strengths and my weaknesses lie and learn how to leverage those effectively. And so that's why you don't see my name on arrangements for our songs, yet somehow Gestalt still won best arrangement at So Jam.
Well, I think that's like so smart, and it takes, you know, some humility and knowing yourself to be able to do that, because in our last year with Trebs, I finally got some like commissions and like arrangements in it. Like it feels like icky. It's like, oh, this like isn't like us anymore or whatever. But like it is you guys. It's just like you're going from having like your old acoustic guitar to like somebody's giving you violins and a piano and this orchestra to play with. And it's like when you're doing a cappella, like the arrangement really is super, super important. So yeah,
I also feel like that award, Outstanding Arrangement, to us, I'm really taking it as best music direction for Ian, because even though he doesn't arrange, the novels he sends to arrangers about what he wants out of each song and the song choice is so cohesive and so thought out. That music direction is what elevates us and why people talk about us. I really think it goes down to the songs that we are singing and how we're singing them. And he has such a strong hand in what those arrangements end up looking like.
Right. So speaking of your song choice, each song is it's clear that each is geared toward a certain goal or a certain brand that you're trying to achieve. So if you could kind of speak to your brand a little bit, because when I was at So Jam, we kept saying to each other how like cultivated and like on point every like aspect of your performance was. So how do you function? How did you set your brand, and how do you keep it where it is?
So in terms of like musically, our brand honestly is derived a lot from just my taste in music. We do have like certain parameters, like you will never hear Gestalt sing a song about like romantic love in just like the very obvious way.
Side note, I love Selah, and I've been waiting for a group to do it forever. So when you guys started singing it, I was like, ah! So.
Oh, I love that. That is so good to hear. Yeah, for me, like what draws me to a song is powerful lyricism. Like Selah is, you know, one of the best examples of that. Emily Sandé used to be a medical student before she was like a full-time singer, performer, whatever. And you can tell if you look at the lyrics of Selah, everything is very like corporeal, like bodily function, like kicking on the diaphragm, all these things. And I just think there's such beauty in that. And so a lot of our song choices, I think, are, for me, sourced around the lyrics. We generally lean towards like a weirder sound, because like I don't want to sing top 40s hits, whatever. I don't want to sound like every other group like from the get-go. So like at base level, a little bit of it might be like I'm trying to sing what other people aren't singing. Like when I first came into a cappella, something that I noticed my freshman year of college, that no one was singing Bjork. which is very understandable because she's very weird. But she's also incredible, and I think more groups should be covering her. Like Vocal Rush did one of her songs at ICHSA Finals last year, and that was incredible. And so that was really great to see. That was also the ICCA season where we did Lion Song, which we also did at SoJam, which is one of my favorite Gestalt songs. So I think it's a matter of seeing what's not being done and just like refusing to like, I don't know, fall into the temptation of imitating other groups and like picking other song choices. Like Brayton Bowman is so overdone now because the Nor'easters did one of his songs and did an incredible job at it. And so now you see so many groups just doing these like, you know, attempts at like matching that. And I think the only group who has come close was the Vassar Devils when they did Privacy.
So good.
But like other than that, so many other groups are doing Brayton Bowman because they think that's just gonna make them into the Nor'easters, and that's not the trick.
So, circling back to the question, just on the concept side, I guess supplementing the music, something we really strive for is when people watch our sets, I think they end up very reactive. They don't even know why they're reacting. They're just feeling emotional. And I think part of that is because we're never going to sing a song that just gives you the answer with these sets. They're very conceptual. I think actually a perfect example is our album Beyond the Archetype. We strive for very, very specific emotions in an arc. And the idea is that if you're listening and you're feeling it, you're going to pull your own story. So like Beyond the Archetype for me is that journey of feeling stifled artistically and emotionally and driving through it and finding that for myself. And so the whole album opens with Trainwreck, which is just like a hot mess. I'm a mess. I don't know what to do right now. Selah is like, well, let me take a breath. And then you move into the rest of the arc of those very specific emotions if you listen to the song. And so we had someone come up to us after ICCA set last year and be like, was your song about religion? I just felt so much. I heard this arc. I felt this. And I was like, well, maybe you're going through something with religion. I'm really happy you felt that way. But you really clung on to these very specific emotions that we served. So we're never going to serve a story like Boy Meets Girl. We're going to serve a concept.
In as much, like, do you guys feel like you have the license to do this? Obviously not to put you in any type of box, but is Gestalt kind of, is competitions where you see your guys living for the foreseeable future? Because I know like part of the reason to do a top 40 tune is to please mom and dad at the final show, or when you're playing out at a gig at an old folks home or something. Like is that where you guys see yourself for the future?
So I don't really see competitions as our goal. Like our goal is not to win competitions. I see them more as like our vehicle. Like competitions are a great way to have access to generally good sound systems and like live sound engineers and everything. Like SoJam had the vocal company, you know, running sound, and it was literally so incredible. And I'm so thankful we had that opportunity. It's like competitions are a good motivation, like to set a deadline for you to like get your act together, have a set ready to perform.
And they put you on the a cappella stage.
Yeah, in a way that like doing a final concert on campus, like those stakes are just so much lower because, you know, most of that audience is going to be friends and family who are going to love whatever you do, even if it's, you know, this 4-part arrangement. You know, they're not necessarily looking for the most like, you know, edgy thing that, you know, is driving a cappella forward. They just want to see you perform. And so competitions are a more critical eye that's, I think, a little less biased in general. So
short answer, yes, I think we will always be a competition group, but it's not for the sake of competition. It's for the sake of being on stages where people really care about a cappella and want to be a part of that conversation. Yeah.
That makes sense. So we were looking at your website earlier and we noticed that you all have specific titles. So Lizzie, you're the director of administration and director of music, and then Emma as communication, which I thought was really unique because there's not a lot of groups with a setup in that sort of fashion. So how did you kind of come to decide that this is how the group would function and these were the roles that we wanted to lead?
Last year, our first year, we actually had a 5-person directorate, which is what we call our executive board. And really our differences in nomenclature is just a reminder to ourselves to always question things. Like if I'm not being critical about my title, how am I going to be critical about my roles? And so, which is why I don't talk about myself as a music director, even though that's generally like exactly what I do. I call myself director of music, just to remind myself that, okay, I need to be constantly looking at the roles I'm taking up and how I'm executing them, and, making sure that I'm doing what's best for Gestalt specifically, and not what's best for where I fit into this a cappella group.
Yeah, it goes back to questioning everything. And I just remembered, not just in a cappella, but in other student organizations, when someone gets the title president, it's like it transforms them in a very negative way. It really can get to your head. And I do have a strong personality, and I didn't want that to happen to me. I knew it was a possibility. And so my original title was administrative leader. And I just wanted to focus on the fact that my job in this group is a liaison to production companies, to festivals. I am scheduling, I'm macro scheduling, I'm micro scheduling. I'm making everything possible for everyone to do their part. And thinking of it that way has allowed me to do my job, I think, in a really awesome way.
That's awesome.
Totally. And so I think it's a really interesting way to structure your e-board administrative, whatever it was that you called it.
Directorate?
Directorate, yes. And then I think you guys had mentioned this, but the Gestalt idea kind of plays out to, you guys are very clearly important in what the group is and everything, but so is every single member of the group is playing a specific role. So we got to watch you twice at the competition and then the masterclass with Aurora. And I think in just that short amount of time, I was able to kind of get a sense of everybody's personality and like what they were good at and everything, which I really like. So like a lot of these people in your group have like a very there's a strong identity, and there's strengths that you clearly are playing to. So like, how do you, like, Emma, I want to talk about that because that's insane. Like Brittany like can belt like not a lot of people can do in like the a cappella sphere and stuff. And then there was the choreo with I think John.
Was
maybe.
it John doing the choreo?
Yeah.
That was
Who's also
unbelievable.
Katie, Sop, etc., etc. Everybody's putting in something unique. So how do you go about knowing that? When did you know that somebody is a gestalter?
I love that. Guy stalk, girl stalk.
Yeah. Gestalt. So that's more in terms of auditions.
So we actually do have a secondary portion of our audition process that caters to that question, and we ask why Gestalt. And some people, they're great singers, and they'll come in and they'll be like, I love the unity of this idea. I love that we're a family. Don't get me wrong, I love everyone in this group, but that's not what Gestalt means. That's not what we're putting forth.
We are music first, friends second. Like, hopefully we will all, be really close-knit and friends with each other because we're incredible and because we're going to these competitions and absolutely, like, slaying the competition and just, like, making incredible music. And I think that is, like, something that, creates bonds between people. But the idea that if you shoot to be friends first and then from that you'll make good music, I think that's a non sequitur. I don't think that is how it works. I don't think you make good music just because you like the people you're around.
So yeah, asking that question, like for example, John, fierce, most incredible performer, love him, came into the audition room. He did his range test and didn't have the middle part of his range. So we were kind of like, all right, we're probably not going to take him.
And we were looking for a tenor, and he was
a baritone
with a soprano octave just up there.
But we asked him why Gestalt, and he had such a clear understanding of who we are and what we wanted, and he wanted that, and he left the room, and we were like, this is a personality and a person that we need. And so that's kind of how we collect people who have Gestalt in them.
They have to be on the same page, otherwise it won't work.
Right.
And that's just a reality.
And then catering to, we find out what their skills are, like John being a countertenor and being able to do a split, and we say, okay, let's do that.
Working with arrangers especially, like Lizzie mentioned, like I send our arrangement commissions as novels, and I include, all these special features of every single person's voice, and if the arranger is, really tapping into, like they want to make this incredible for us too, they will do that, and they will pick, the voicing so that people are doing what they're best at always. And I think that was really evident in like a lot of our So Jam repertoire. I think those are some of the best arrangements we've sung, for sure.
I don't mean to single out any one person, and I'm sorry to bring it up twice, and I don't mean to morning radio it, but what's the deal with Emma? Can you just, I think the people want to know.
Of course. Oh, Emma.
So apparently it's called sideways yodeling. That's what people on YouTube comments have been telling her since like high school. She doesn't really know either. It's just like literally how she sings. Like she can kind of...
For people who are listening who like don't know what they're talking about, Emma sings and the technique she uses or just the way she performs sounds very much like a way something would sound if it were auto-tuned. So,
and the way that she explains it is that everyone has a break in their voice. We all know this when we go from belting to falsetto. She has just so many, so it chops up her voice in that way.
So every note change is her like flipping over
It's a
what
hard
sounds
flip.
like a break. Yeah. And then when she does it in like a really fast riff, it just sounds like not human.
Yeah, very, very cool. So just speaking of soloists, so it's clear that each person is like perfect for the song that you would pick. So I'm just curious if you have a particular like audition process, or if that's not even a thing, if you do it backwards where you pick a song knowing that you have someone that you want to sing it, or how does that process work for you guys?
Yeah, so we don't do solo auditions. When I'm picking the repertoire, generally I'm gonna have a person in mind to solo it, and if I don't, then that song will not be confirmed into repertoire until I do know who's gonna solo it. Otherwise it just sits in my little Spotify playlist of songs that I eventually want to do with Gestalt.
Is it that are you the only one picking the rep?
Yeah. And so I think that the fact that I am having like more or less complete control over what songs we do is part of why our sets like seem so cohesive, because I like all the songs we're doing. Like it's all my taste. And like Lizzie, you know, I do consult with Lizzie and Emma as well, like creatively. Like Lizzie and I worked a little bit over the summer together on the So Jam sets.
I basically confirm that each song has purpose and it's not just because he likes it. So I make him write out why and how they go together, basically a research report.
Yeah.
And if I find that it's really in the best interest of the group, then we go forward.
Yeah.
So speaking of the So Jam set, just if you guys could kind of speak to how that particular thing came together, because I think part of the reason why I was taken with it when I saw it was what I'd seen from you guys was you guys covering Bastard Devils last year, and so that was like my frame of reference, and then to see this thing at So Jam was like a huge change. So like what was the idea and the arc that you guys were trying to do for that set?
With respect to the video, the Time Machine Live video that you referenced, I think that was like almost exactly a year before So Jam.
Yeah.
So we grew a lot. We learned, you know, more of our own identity as Gestalt, because I think at the time when we filmed that video, we had only been singing those two Devil songs and then one song by the SoCal Vocals, which was very much not our style, even though they're incredible. And so in that year, you know, we had worked mostly on our ICCA set that season, which was sourced around frustration. And so then coming into So Jam, we sort of looked back on critiques we had gotten from ICCA.
Confusing song choice.
Yeah. One of the judges I think it was at Quarters, like for an entire song just wrote confusing song choice.
And then for the second one wrote ditto.
Yeah, so two of those songs had literally no critique, which is absolutely frustrating. Because it's fine if you're confused by it, like tell me like why you're confused, or like try to think a little deeper, or I don't know, give me constructive criticism. Just don't say you don't like something. That's
On that
unhelpful.
note, though, and this is something I love and now has become a Gestalt standard, people either are living for what we're selling or they hate it. Nobody is neutral. And in our judging sheets, we've gotten stuff like, you turned Bjork into a verb, y'all Bjorked that. We've gotten stuff that says, you are the reason I'm an a cappella educator for the past 30 years. And then we get people who are like, I just really don't get it. I don't like it. And honestly, that to me is success. I'm like, you are feeling so strongly one way or another, so I'm going to take that.
That's exactly what I was going to bring up. We sort of reflected on this idea that people love us or they hate us, but either way, we are polarizing people's opinions, which I love. So I think collectively we all kind of just agreed to like continue pushing the envelope and like go further. Like we beefed up choreo for Lion Song, which is the only song that we had performed last year that we brought back for So Jam. We, I think, went weirder with our round one opener, O Sun, O Medusa. I think that,
Veils.
in the Veils.
Yeah, so where did that idea come from?
So O Sun, O Medusa is one of those songs that had just like been sitting in my Spotify playlist for a while, and like all of last spring semester, like I would just sing the like the little like refrain, like the sun, and just be so ridiculous with it because I thought it was so fun. And I live with Emma, and so she would get so annoyed with me because I would sing it all the time, and she'd be like, what is this song, like why are you singing it, like, and I'd be like, oh, it's gonna be in Gestalt's repertoire next year, and she's like, no, it's not, like you're so dumb, stop. And then it ended up being our opener for round one, and I think was incredible. But I think the Medusa myth is absolutely beautiful, and it makes, obvious references to that. And really, round one entirely was based around desperation and this idea of like a general deity. So like the songs were O Sun, O Medusa, then Pray to God, then Mother. And all three songs, if you look at the lyrics, they reference some type of like higher being in this, in a very similar way throughout the three of them. It's like this sort of like referential, just like acknowledgement of like something higher and being like more powerful and more capable, and expressing this desire to sort of tap into that power. And so for me, that's what united the round one set.
And then I think specifically you asked where the veils came from. And so it is this idea of pushing the sun away and not being able to see the light. And since the round was costumes and showmanship, and we were not under any circumstances wearing a real costume, we decided to create sunlight with a veil. So that's kind of where that came from. And it was inspired by Banks, who's an artist that actually had worn veils on the stage for a music festival.
Cool. Yeah, I remember when you guys went on stage, I was like, here we go. And then you guys like, and then as soon as you guys were doing it, I was like, oh, all right, I'm wrong. They're correct, which is like my favorite thing. Whenever people are like able to do something that you're like, that's going to be dumb. And then seconds later, you're like, I'm crying. Like, that's my favorite thing. So
thank you.
That's why I love that. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, exactly. Sometimes both.
Yeah.
Sometimes both.
And then so you guys like took a few more like big risks in the set. And you had at one point like almost the whole group go off stage, and you just had just a soloist, and then I think John was it doing this body contortion-y stuff. There were a few other things that y'all did that was great.
So just in general though, I'm just curious, who did the choreo, or was it multiple people for the set?
I did choreography last year, and so Lion Prelude and Lion Song are from last year. And then we took on a new choreographer who is John, who did everything else, and I just was assisting sometimes. Just because it's hard to know what's going to look good on everyone, so having already had that experience, we really worked together on finding the medium between what he had wanted and what we were capable of. Yeah. But to talk about, again, those last two songs, Lion Prelude and Lion Song, Lion Prelude is an extension of Lion Song, and Lion Song was devised choreography. So I got into a room with Brittany and John, because John was the countertenor feature. And I knew I wanted to do stuff. I wanted to talk about that relationship between Brittany, the soloist, and John, this being that's kind of lyrically written about in the song. And so I said, just do what you feel. And so we ran the song a couple of times, and they did what they felt. And I started to be like, oh, I like this, I don't like this, this is staying, this is going, until we had this relationship and this idea. And so sometimes we will do stuff like devised choreo, like in Sassi, the first song of the third round, there's the machine section where we're all teamed up, and we have this very big rhythm section, and that was all devised. John just said, look like a machine, and you worked with your partner and created these cogs coming together. So though most of it is done by one choreographer, there's room for artistic vision from each person.
Very cool.
And with respect to the Lion Song choreo, I think we've been used to performing that for like 9 months now, so we're used to it. But when we first did it, like with this idea of, 8 out of the 10 people in the group literally leaving the stage just like halfway through the ICCA set, like I think we forget how risky I feel like that was. Like we had to, like check the rules, like, okay, does every singer like have to stay on stage? Like, is that a thing?
It just felt, though, when we did the devised choreo with just me, John, and Britt in the room, we were like, we don't want anyone on the stage for this. I don't know what they would do. They would take away from this moment. And so we brought Ian in, and we were like, we have to do this. Can you make it work musically? And he was like, we're going to have to.
That's the team. That's what we did. Yeah, I think it paid off.
Yeah. So I think, just to whoever's listening, I think, when you see groups like y'all, or when you see a Devils, or like groups that are impactful like that, I think that there's this desire to then like do exactly what they're doing. But like what I love about what y'all saying is, I think that some people are not gonna like what you do in terms of the way that you run stuff, the way that you pick songs, the way you sing your songs. Like there's people that aren't gonna like that, and I think you guys are so okay with that, and that's what makes it like work for you, right? Like you're just doing what exactly what you want to do, and I think that's it works for you guys, and it probably won't work the exact same way
for sure
for another group. So I think that's like, I think what sticks out to me in is that you guys are able to constantly evaluate your actual strengths, your actual weaknesses, what you're going to be okay with, what you're not going to be okay with. And I think that's, if you're trying to take a lesson from this episode, that would be my lesson from this episode.
Not you guys, everyone else listening.
And something more administrative that sort of, I don't know, references is somewhere deep in our Constitution, as a student organization at the University of Florida, we have some clause that's like called mutable directorate. And basically, like, we completely change the executive board every year just to adapt the position so that they best fit the people who are going to be leading the group. Like, that for us is so the emphasis. Like, yes, Lizzie is essentially president, I'm essentially a music director, but a lot of, I think, the success in starting this group was our dynamic between the two of us, and us being so comfortable with like leveraging, like, okay, I'm not so good at this, but Lizzie's really good at this, or like Lizzie's not the best at this, but I'm really good at it, even if it doesn't fall strictly within the lines of like what a president normally does or what a music director normally does. And so that changes every year. Like, that changed this past year going into the second year, and it surely will change next year once Lizzie and I graduate. And so, the incoming directorate is going to have to sort of wiggle things around and shift certain responsibilities just so that everybody is doing what they're best at and no one is having to do something that they're not capable of doing or not good at. And I think that's really important, not trying to fit people into roles, but allowing roles to morph to people.
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. Well, we're right at the end of the podcast for today. We could definitely talk more about stuff. We clearly see eye to eye on many issues. But we usually like to close with, what trends are you excited by in acapella? What do you want to see? And then what's next for Gestalt and you guys individually, if you have anything going?
Like, more high school groups. I'm sure that's been said before, but I know like a high school group competed at Boss, I think for the first time this past year. Yeah. I know SoJam allowed submissions from high school groups. None of them competed this year, but two of my favorite groups ever are both high school, OneVoice and Vocal Rush. They're both incredible. Yeah, they're both incredible. They're, definitely my top 5. And so I think more high schools should see that and tap into that. Like, I wish I had been able to do this type of a cappella in high school.
Yeah.
And heck, even middle school. I don't know. Is that already a thing? Elementary school a
It
cappella
is a
groups?
thing.
Yeah.
I love it.
I guess Gestalt moving forward, we are in the process of producing a video with the vocal company of our round 3 from SoJam, so that should be out soon. Hopefully going to Boss and hopefully NAC too. So just really trying to hit all the festivals, and we'll be at the Betsy A Cappella Festival in 2 weeks, and we'll also be doing the showcase there.
Fun stuff. Well, thank you guys so much for coming on. Go check out Gestalt's new album, Beyond the Archetype.
It's
available
awesome.
in stores now. And we will see you guys next week for a new episode of Head Voice.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Without you. Ooh, easier without